Dissociation, what is it? How do we know when we're dissociating? And how do we know when we might need some help with that dissociation? So, dissociation, disassociation as it's sometimes called, is when we lose an association. And so dissociation from a physical point of view and a somatic point of view is when we lose contact with often felt sense of what's going on inside our bodies. We all dissociate, actually, we all dissociate every day, and it doesn't mean it's a problem. And there's something that's really important here that I think often there's a lot said about dissociation at the moment, and people can feel like it's a bad thing. It's like, oh gosh, I'm dissociating, there must be broken, there must be something wrong with me. No, it serves you. All of these adaptations that we all have, all of our defenses, and we all have them, are there to protect us. And rather than seeing our body as the enemy, gosh, I can remember in my own healing journey, the big turning point when I realized that I need to stop thinking my body is the enemy. Pain is communication. It's trying to talk to me, trying to tell me something. Now, if what it's trying to tell me is, or what's going on has been overwhelming and too much for the nervous system, then we might need to slightly put some earmuffs on and not listen to that as a way of coping. So it's not bad, it's looking after you, it's a coping mechanism. Think about it, those moments when every day we might just think, sorry, what did you just say? We've slightly dissociated, and it might be that our mind has wandered somewhere else, but it might be that actually the topic of conversation actually was a little bit tricky, or we see something on the television and we go, actually, it's hit something in our system and activated us a little bit. And the default path has been, okay, I think this might be a bit tricky, and we'll just slightly zone out from that. Now that might be a more awareness cognitive dissociation where we feel like we're slightly zoning out, or another common form that I work with in the body is a more felt sense dissociation or a somatic dissociation. Heartache, for example, really emotional pain with some grief that maybe is overwhelming as well. If our body or our gut is, tightening up in some way, and that's where we're holding this emotion, then if that at some point has been overwhelming and therefore not processable, then if we get those messages again in the future, we might just dumb down how much we listen to them to cope, because then it makes the situation bearable. The only problem with that is that it does mean that going forwards we get in a pattern and a habit of not necessarily dealing with the emotional matters of life, because it can't be fully processed and allowed to pass through. And that's when it becomes a problem, because then that's going to lock in the body and cause disease, pain, muscular tension, when we can't feel what's going on because we've sort of dumbed it down. How do we know when we might need help then, given that we all dissociate probably every day to some extent? It comes down to when the body starts to speak. And if very often that's when the patient comes when the body started to have pain or it started to have disease. I think an understanding of dissociation and somatic approaches and nervous system problems, I think if we could integrate that and understand the power of that within general medicine, well, wow. I mean, then we really would, if every GP understood this, every doctor understood this, and every physiotherapist understood this, then every time a patient was coming in with irritable bowel syndrome, we would be seeing the patient very, very differently. We would be thinking, right, what's going on with your nervous system? Why has that become dysregulated? What is it that we need to do to help you come back into a connection with this? And not everybody dissociates that's got IBS, but very often we're not feeling it, and you have to feel it to heal it. Because if you can't feel it, you can't control it. It's rather like driving down the road and going, well, actually my speedometer has stopped working. Well, it's going to be really difficult to know whether you're driving too fast or too slow, whether you need to use accelerator or the brake. And so the whole system goes if you don't have a feedback mechanism and a sensory awareness. And usually we know when it's becoming a problem, we need to get some help, when we get disease or pain. Whenever I'm looking at somebody for any problem, I'm helping them to see their bodies, helping them to understand together what they can feel, what they can't feel, when they can feel it, and then when all of a sudden they find themselves shutting down from it. And then using different approaches and somatic approaches usually to help them to not dissociate. It's common in the trauma world because trauma is probably one of the biggest reasons why we might dissociate, because it's too much, too fast, too long, or not enough in the case of neglect. Those situations will cause us definitely to find a way to cope, and usually that will involve some form of dissociation from the body, which is saying this is unbearable and this is painful. But if we can't feel it, we can't heal it. But we can't just throw people back into going, well, feel this terrible pain. So we need to just gently, through skillful ways, with the therapist in a good therapeutic alliance, help the patient to start to feel and come back into full contact and relationship with their body. And then we reach, as I did in my personal journey, a point where we start thinking our body is the enemy and we really become friends with our own body again. Hi, I'm Roger. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons.